So today I really wanted to talk about something that I really did wish I knew when I first started music production and mixing and working on my own music and doing all of this. And I started pretty much self-taught and just kind of got in and did it. And I learned a lot of lessons over that time just by making mistakes. But this is something that I wish I had known when I first started. So this video is going to be kind of directed toward beginners or, just beginning, intermediate mixers, or, if you're doing your own at-home recording. This is kind of geared towards you because I wanted to just share this because this I would have been cool to know. And it really has to do with effects, so reverb, delay, things like that. And with mixing, there's not really a hard and fast rule that you should do this every single time, and this is how you should process your effects, etc. It's just really trial and error, but this is the way that I really like doing it, and it's made a world of difference in the way that I process all of the effects, my spatial effects. But anyway, let's get into it and actually get into the video here. I'm going to record something really quickly here just so we have kind of a sample song to work on. Yeah, let's go do that. Okay, so now as you see here, I've got kind of just very basic mixing kind of stuff done. I just put some EQ, some compression. Didn't really go into in-depth like saturation, anything like that. So, and then I've got just like a little bit of a kind of quasi mastering chain going on here, just to kind of bring it to level. But all of this stuff right here is what I was wanting to really talk about today, and processing all of the spatial effects. So I've got multiple different effects set up here. I've got like a plate reverb, a kind of like a spatial reverb, which I use Valhalla Supermassive. If you don't have that, it's a free plugin. This thing is awesome. Highly recommend downloading that and using it. But then I've got like a room reverb, and then I've got like a slapback delay, and then I think this is a quarter note delay. I think that's what I have it set to. Usually that's what I have it set to, not an eighth note, but either way, that's the kind of a longer delay that I have kind of, mixed in there. And then I've got this kind of tape echo, which is a really cool plugin. This tape echo emulator, and this is by Cherry Audio. I highly recommend picking that up too. This is a really cool plugin for that more space echo, like kind of that vintagey kind of sounding echoes. It's good. We can do some cool stuff with that, reverbs and delays, etc. But I've got it being kind of more of a reverb. I think it's on a spring, kind of more like a spring reverb here. That's what it's doing for me. And then I have it all of these being bussed to this main all wet bus where all of these effects are going to. So let's just take a listen to this again here really quick, the kind of the little track we had going on that I threw together super quick, so we can hear what's kind of going on. What I'll do is I'll go through and just solo these out so you hear what they're doing. There you have that. Room. And a slapback delay going on there. There's that main delay. Don't have a lot going to it. double tape echo here. And finally, all of the wet effects. So, yeah, very cool. And if you go back here and look at all the tracks, obviously, how to set this up and how to go about setting this up, I guess, is something I should obviously address and tell you first if you're not familiar with this. I use Studio One, which is the DAW that I use. And so whatever the tracks are, for example, here's my acoustic guitar. I just take the individual track and I'm creating a sending audio destinations, and I'm coming here to send it to, you know, whatever I want it to. And of course I'm controlling the levels of each send into each effect, each bus that I'm sending it to right here too. And of course that's going to be different for every DAW. I'm not, you know, dependent upon what you use, but it's all going to be kind of the same general idea. That's what you're going to do. Just send send your signal to whatever the effect is that you're trying to send to, and control the level. Same thing with the dobro here. And what? No. I don't know. And then I've got the piano here, you know, being sent. And this is the drum kit and the room, just a little bit of room, some of the room reverb. So yeah, I mean, that's in essence how you set it up. Very simple, straightforward. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this today in a video, and the reason I wanted to make a video about this and why it's so cool and this technique, first and foremost, sending all of your wet effects separately gives you all of the ability to control the levels of them, obviously, first and foremost. So for example, let's play this again. So this plate reverb, if I wanted to be louder, obviously, and I'm just adjusting just the plate reverb. And I can adjust it how I want to and see fit. Same thing with the space reverb, right? You can hear that if we turn it all the way up. You can hear that effect. So why this is useful and important is because obviously the mistakes that I used to make when I first started out is I would just throw the effect on the actual track there, and that's what I would just adjust it from there. And I couldn't adjust the level of it as far as the volume. Didn't really have much control over it, and there you go. You know, and that was one of the biggest mistakes that I was making. That's the biggest disadvantage to throwing effects on actual tracks, is that you get really almost no control over them. And then, of course, it just gets sent to whatever bus you're sending them to, the instrument bus, for example, or even the main bus if you're sending it there, you know, whatever the track is. And then it can kind of get muddy and a little crazy, and you know, it creates an issue down the line of, you know, of processing, and then it just turns into a big giant mess, big money mess. So of course you can control the levels here. This I didn't used to do until just recently, where I would send all my effects directly to just a bus and process them on a full bus, all of the wet effects. I think I picked that up from, can't think of the guy's name right now, but he has a channel. It's called Make Pop Music, and he does a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool music production stuff, and covers a lot of stuff. And I saw him do that in one of the videos I watched a while back, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to start doing that. And ever since then, you know, this has been useful for me, pretty useful, so I wanted to share that too. There's a lot more that you can do with processing on this full effects bus where you're sending your, you know, the effects to. But for now, I just put an EQ on it just to talk about this. But that's pretty cool. So definitely do that too. You get that benefit and advantage. And then the final thing that I think is the most useful thing that I have found with using individual effects buses and sending your signals there is you can EQ them individually. So, for example, so let's just So for example, here's what I got going on in the plate reverb, right? So you hear, wanted a little more of that. And listen to this. Yeah, horrible, right? You can take that out. Same up here. I didn't really like all that scratchy. You hear that? Yeah, I didn't like the way that sounded. So I dipped that out too. And then I kind of kept some of the low end, the reverb and that plate reverb. Sometimes I'll drive it up here to about 200 or so and use that as the cut. I usually don't go far above 10K because a lot of this up here kind of you don't really need in the reverb. So 10K, usually 10, 11K is usually where I put that off, and it's just kind of a preference. But and then you look across the line here, and a very similar thing I'm doing with all of the other reverbs. Room reverb. I got the room reverb set up, kind of doing the same thing. I guess I didn't like some of that some of the low end that was in there. I wanted some more of it in. Anyhow, yeah, a couple of dips, kind of the same area. Yeah, I don't like that at all. And that's why I took that out. But anyway, kind of get the general idea that you can sit here and process this each individually. And you can EQ. That one's a little different. Yeah, so I've got a couple of these I didn't like. Yeah, you can see why. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, but you have that kind of control. You have even down to that minute amount of control where you can notch out stuff that sounds really bad or kind of sounds nasty. And then the last thing I'll show you, obviously all the wet effects. Kind of a cool little thing. Again, I got this from, sorry I forgot his name, but the guy that does make pop music. He likes to take the sides in the wet effects and raise the highs a bit in the side channels. So that was pretty cool. Helps create a little bit of width and brings it a little more clearer out of the sides and not just the stereo channel. So you get that out of the sides. Some other notches I made. But again, I did this really quickly. This is just to kind of give you an idea. Super cool, right? But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today, guys. I mean, that was something that I wish I would have known. It made a world of a difference the way I look at effects. And of course, there's some other things that you could do, more minutia. If you want me to kind of cover stuff like that, I can do that definitely in a video and tell you how I further process stuff like this and using saturation, etc. But this, when it comes to effects, because they're so useful and so common, reverb and delay and things that are used in all of our songs and all of this stuff, pretty much anything that you do is going to have all these effects. Thought this was useful to share. But we'll see you in the next one.